Welcome to another episode of People Pod.
Hey, everyone.
Today we are exploring a core tension that frankly feels like something out of a coming-of-age screenplay.
Yeah, but it actually happened in real time.
Right, on the global stage.
Yeah.
Like, I want you to just imagine this for a second. How does a 16-year-old from the quiet suburbs of New Zealand, who was literally giving her music away for free on SoundCloud,
completely for free, yeah.
how does she accidentally dismantle the entire sound of 21st century pop?
And then get called the future of music by David Bowie himself.
Exactly. And then, after all that, proceed to constantly break apart her own image, to the point where she eventually leaves the very music industry machine that built her.
It is an absolutely massive, just completely unconventional trajectory.
It really is. And for you listening, I want to frame this deep dive right out of the gate. We aren't just doing a standard biography of a pop star today.
No, definitely not.
We're looking at this fascinating study of artistic rebellion. It's about the mechanics of reinvention. But maybe most importantly, it's about that incredibly messy transition from being a teenage observer of the world to, becoming an adult protagonist in your own life.
Right, and the person at the center of this transition is Ella Marija Lani Yelich O'Connor.
Which is quite the name.
It is.
Yep.
Though you and pretty much the rest of the world know her simply as Lorde.
Right.
And even the stage name itself is this statement of intent. She was always fascinated by these concepts of royalty and the aristocracy.
I mean, she was a teenager, so that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. She originally liked the stage name Lorde, just straight up, but she felt it leaned a bit too masculine, so she simply added an E to the end to feminize it.
Just a little tweak.
Yeah, and just like that, Lorde was born. But to truly understand the seismic impact of her arrival, we really have to talk about what the cultural stage actually sounded like right before 2013.
Oh, man. Let's pull ourselves back to that specific era of pop music.
It was a time.
It really was. If you turn on the radio in, say, 2011 or 2012, you were getting pummeled by maximalism.
Just wall-to-wall noise.
Exactly. It was the absolute peak of EDM pop. We were talking Pitbull, Katy Perry, LMFAO.
Shuffling every day.
Right. Driving 4 on the floor, club beats,
Mm-hmm.
these massive synthesizer drops, highly choreographed videos. Everything was relentless, high-energy escapism.
It was a lot.
It was essentially like being in a neon-lit, overstimulated blockbuster movie or a nightclub where everyone is just screaming over the music to be heard.
Yeah.
And the Lord walks in, unplugs the main speakers, and just starts speaking to you in this sudden quiet, like an indie film that suddenly sweeps the box office.
That is such a good analogy. And that abrupt sonic shift didn't come from, a boardroom in Los Angeles.
Right.
It started in 1996 in Takapuna, which is a suburb of Auckland, New Zealand.
Right.
She was born to a civil engineer father, Vic O'Connor, and a poet mother, Sanja Yelich.
Wow. Okay. That specific parental combination, structural precision of an engineer, and the lyrical depth of a poet that feels incredibly prophetic.
Oh, it totally is, especially when you analyze how she builds her songs later on.
Right. And the sources emphasize that very early on, she was just operating on a completely different cognitive wavelength.
Yeah, she was. At just 6 years old, a teacher noticed something different about her. So her mother had her take the Woodcock-Johnson tests of cognitive abilities.
Classic gifted desk.
Exactly. The results came back officially labeling her as a gifted child. She was briefly enrolled in a gifted education organization.
But, and here's the critical turning point, her mother actually pulled her out.
Yeah, which is so interesting.
She cited concerns about Ella's social development, like she just wanted her to experience a normal childhood.
And that decision is foundational to literally everything that follows.
How so?
Well, by pulling her out of that sterilized, gifted track and putting her back into the regular suburban ecosystem, her mother basically ensured that Ella would become an observer of normal teenage life.
Instead of being isolated from it.
Exactly. Plus, her mother encouraged this incredibly dense, sophisticated reading diet. Lorde has cited M.T. Anderson's young adult dystopian novel feed as a major influence.
Oh, I know that one. It makes sense. That book is a super dark critique of hyper-consumerism.
Right. And she was also reading J.D. Salinger and Raymond Carver while she was in middle school.
See, Raymond Carver is the one that really sticks out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Carver is the master of dirty realism, like economical short fiction. He doesn't just say, I was devastated. He describes a half-empty glass of gin and a screen door slamming.
That's a great point.
And you can hear that exact mechanism in her songwriting later. She doesn't write standard pop hooks about feeling sad. She writes these hyper-specific character studies.
Exactly. She essentially learned to write music by studying how Carver put sentences together.
Which is wild for a kid.
It is. So how does a kid reading Carver in an Auckland suburb get thrust into the global music machine?
Right. What's the bridge?
It starts at a middle school talent show in 2009. She and her friend Lewis McDonald won as a duo. This led to an invitation to sing some covers on a local radio show. And then McDonald's dad took a recording of them covering Duffy's Warwick Avenue and sent it to Scott McLaughlin.
Who is he?
He was an A&R executive at Universal Music Group. And based purely on the vocal tone in that one cover, McLaughlin signs her to UMG for development.
Wow.
And she is only 12 or 13 years old at the time.
Okay, I have to pause here because the business logic is baffling to me.
Oh, for sure.
Why would a massive corporate record label sign a 12-year-old who doesn't even write her own original music yet? It's literally like a real estate developer buying a random plot of farmland, knowing they can't even check to see if there's oil underneath it for like half a decade.
It was an immense gamble, highly unusual. McLaughlin basically treated her as a long-term venture capital bet.
Just parking the money.
Yeah. For years, the label just paid for her to take vocal lessons twice a week.
That's it.
Pretty much. They kept trying to partner her with different established songwriters and producers, and for a long time, it was a complete disaster.
I can imagine.
The industry veterans were trying to write standard pop songs for her, and she fundamentally rejected them. They didn't sound like the literature she was reading.
Right. She wants Raymond Carver, and they're giving her Katy Perry.
Exactly. But eventually, she finds her translator, and this launches what we can call her anti-pop conquest era from around 2013 to 2015.
So who was the translator?
In December 2011, the label pairs her with a New Zealand producer named Joel Little. They go into his Golden Age studios in Auckland, and something just clicks.
Magic happens.
Right. Within 3 weeks, they record 5 songs that would eventually become the Love Club EP.
And the release of this EP tells you everything you need to know about her instincts right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the label executives hear the tracks, they realize they are great, but they totally freeze. They're terrified it won't be profitable because it doesn't sound like anything else on the radio.
And nobody knows who this teenager is.
Exactly. So instead of waiting for the corporate machinery to figure out a marketing plan, she just bypasses the gatekeepers entirely. In late 2012, she uploads the EP for free on her SoundCloud account, just drops it into the void.
Yeah.
And the organic response was staggering. It racked up 60,000 downloads purely through word of mouth before the label finally scrambled to release it commercially in 2013.
They had to catch up to her.
Yeah. And of course, the anchor of that EP was a track called Royals. Okay, we have to talk about Royals. It wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural reset.
Completely.
10 million units sold worldwide, diamond certification. She peaked at #1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100. And get this, she was the youngest artist to achieve that since Tiffany in 1987.
Which is just insane.
It is. But let's dig into why it worked. You look at the album that followed, Pure Heroin, and the sound is incredibly stark.
Very minimal.
Condition called chromesthesia, where she literally experiences sounds and notes as specific colors.
This is crucial to understanding the architecture of her music. When you or I hear a synth line, we just hear audio. She sees a specific hue.
Wait, okay. If she is literally seeing sounds as colors in her head, wouldn't that make her want to create a massive, colorful wall of sound? Why does her condition lead to such a stripped-down, empty soundscape?
That's a great question, because if you throw every single color onto a canvas at once, you don't get a rainbow. You get a muddy, chaotic, overwhelming brown.
Oh.
Yeah. To Lorde, the maximalist pop on the radio sounded visually exhausting.
It was too brown.
Exactly. By stripping the instrumentation down to the bare essentials, like just a heavy sub-bass, some snapping fingers, and layered vocal harmonies, she was isolating specific, vivid colors. She created empty space so the colors could breathe.
Wow, that makes perfect sense. And lyrically, she used that empty space to write from the perspective of an aloof, cynical outsider.
The teenager on the bus.
Right. She was critiquing the excess of mainstream pop culture. You know, like the gold teeth, the gray goose, the diamonds in the flesh, from the vantage point of just a normal kid.
Yeah.
But the supreme irony of Pure Heroin is that by mocking the aristocracy of top music, she accidentally became its reigning queen.
She really did. And the industry respect she garnered was instant and frankly kind of surreal.
Give me an example.
We're talking about the surviving members of Nirvana choosing her, a 17-year-old, to front the band and sing All Apologies at their Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction in 2014.
That is wild.
Right. Dave Grohl explicitly stated it was because her perceptive anti-commercial lyrics represented a modern Nirvana aesthetic.
What a compliment.
Huge. And she was then handpicked to curate the entire soundtrack for the massive blockbuster Hunger Games, Mockingjay.
So she was everywhere.
Everywhere. She was thrust into the role of the voice of a generation, which is a title she actively pushed back against, insisting that young people don't need a single specialized spokesperson.
Well, and you can't stay a 16-year-old observer forever.
Right. Time moves on.
Which brings us to the era from 2016 to 2019 and the release of her sophomore album, Melodrama.
This is a big shift.
It is. This is where the narrative shifts from the suburbs to the inner city, from observation to participation. She moves out of her parents' house to an inner-city suburb of Auckland called Ponsonby.
She rose up.
She experiences a devastating breakup. And musically, she starts collaborating with producer Jack Antonoff.
Antonoff is known for this sweeping, emotionally massive piano and synth pop production. And combining that with her first real heartbreak resulted in a total thematic pivot.
Okay.
She went from writing about we and us in the suburbs to writing about I and me in the aftermath of a house party.
I want to challenge this pivot for a second, though.
Sure.
She built her entire global identity on being the cool, detached critic of pop melodrama. Isn't pivoting to an album literally called Melodrama, where she is the emotionally raw, crying in the club protagonist, isn't that a massive betrayal of the very brand that made her special?
It's a fair question.
Like, it feels like she just becomes exactly what she used to mock. It's like stepping out from behind the camera of a documentary to suddenly starring in a reality show.
It definitely looks like a betrayal if you view her as a fixed character in a movie.
Okay.
But as a human being, it's just the inevitable consequence of growing up.
Right. You can't stay in character.
Exactly. The defensive irony of pure heroine works when you're a kid looking in from the outside, but once you move out, fall in love, and get your heart broken, that cynical armor just doesn't fit anymore.
That makes sense.
And her influences for this era reflect that emotional chaos. She was obsessively listening to Paul Simon's Graceland while riding subways in New York and taking taxis in Auckland.
Oh, Graceland is such a specific, percussive, complex album.
It really is. And narratively, she was drawing inspiration from a 1950 science fiction short story by Ray Bradbury called There Will Come Soft Rains.
Wait, isn't that the one about the automated house?
Yes, it's about a house continuing to function after its inhabitants have been destroyed. She mapped that sci-fi concept of a burning empty house onto the concept of a house party where everyone is desperately trying to outrun their own loneliness.
Man, it's an incredible artistic leap.
It's genius.
But during this melodrama era, the bubble of her artistry violently collided with global geopolitics.
Yes, it did.
In December 2017, she canceled a scheduled 2018 concert in Israel.
Right. And based on the documented sources, she made the decision to cancel the show following an organized online campaign by Palestinian solidarity activists who support the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions, or BDS, campaign.
And to give you, the listener, some vital historical context here, without litigating the underlying geopolitical conflict, and we need to be very clear, we are not taking a side or endorsing any political viewpoints here. We are just conveying the historical events as documented in the source material.
Exactly. Completely neutral reporting here.
This cancellation became a highly polarized cultural flashpoint. Pro-Palestine organizations heavily praised the boycott, viewing it as a meaningful act of solidarity.
Right.
On the flip side, pro-Israel groups heavily criticized the move, arguing it was an unfair singling out of the nation.
And Lorde herself admitted in a statement that she had been naive. She noted she was unaware of the political turmoil when she originally approved the tour routing.
It's a harsh realization.
Yeah.
At her level of fame, you can no longer just be an artist in a vacuum. Every logistical decision is a political statement.
It completely shattered any remaining illusion that she was just an indie artist from Auckland.
Yeah.
So, facing the immense weight of that global scrutiny and just the exhaustion of touring her own heartbreak, she disappears again.
As she does.
Right, which ushers in the era of solar power, spanning from 2020 to 2023.
She announces she's working on a third album, and the context of its creation is wild. Like, she takes a trip to Antarctica.
Casual.
Yeah, casual trip to the ice.
Yeah.
She also suffers the tragic death of her dog, Pearl. And when solar power finally drops in 2021, the electropop angst is completely gone.
Just vanish.
She pivots to acoustic indie folk music. Guitars, mellow melodies, singing about the sun and the beach.
And it deeply polarized both critics and her core audience.
Yeah, I remember that.
To put it bluntly, a lot of people just didn't get it. A year after its release, Lorde herself wrote an email to her fans, admitting that the public reaction was confounding and painful for her to process.
But let me push on this, though. Was the album just a misfire? Did she lose touch with what made her relatable because she's now, wealthy and isolated?
That's what people said.
Because it's hard to relate to acoustic songs about wellness retreats when your audience is struggling to pay rent.
Right, and that was the exact argument many critics made. But if we look at the mechanics of the music industry, a major pop artist totally abandoning the sonic formula that made them rich is incredibly rare.
Oh, for sure. The labels hate that.
The label system is designed to force artists to recreate their biggest hits endlessly. But Lorde demanded the space to experiment.
She refused to be boxed in.
Exactly. She refused to stay frozen as the sad, cynical girl from Pure Heroine or the heartbroken girl from Melodrama. Even if it meant alienating a portion of her base, she insisted on moving forward.
She also used this era to assert a deeper cultural impact back home. She released a companion EP to the album called Te Ao Marama, which featured 5 tracks sung entirely in Te Reo Maori, which is the indigenous language of New Zealand.
That was a huge deal.
And she directed all the proceeds to 2 New Zealand-based charities focusing on the environment and indigenous initiatives.
Which served as a vital palate cleanser, both personally and artistically, for what was to come next.
Right.
Because moving from 2024 to the present day, we enter a period defined by massive rebirth, shifting identity, and ultimate independence.
The 2025 comeback.
Oh, yeah.
She starts making moves behind the scenes, signing a new publishing deal with Universal Music Publishing Group. But her re-entry into the public consciousness really kicks off with her feature on the viral remix of Charlie XCX's track Girl. So confusing.
That remix was a brilliant bridge.
It really was.
It allowed her to directly address the complicated, often messy relationships between female pop stars. It effectively cleared the air and set the stage for her 4th studio album, Virgin, released in June 2025.
And musically, Virgin is a massive return to form. She co-produced it with Jimmy Stack, and she brought back the drum machines.
Yes.
She brought back the distorted synths and the electropop energy of her early work, but layered it with this profound adult maturity. She even played a surprise set of the entire album at the 2025 Glastonbury Festival.
That was iconic.
And when describing the creation of this album, she used incredibly vivid language. She said the project broke her apart and forged a new creature.
Yeah.
So how did her personal evolution mirror her musical one during this era?
Well, that phrase, forged a new creature, isn't just about the music. It maps directly onto her evolving understanding of her own gender identity.
Really?
Yeah, which she began to speak about very openly during this album cycle. At the 2025 Met Gala, she gave a red carpet interview where she described feeling like a man and a woman.
Wow, that is a deeply vulnerable thing to share on such a massive, heavily scrutinized stage.
It is, and she elaborated on it later in a Rolling Stone interview, stating that she identifies in the middle, gender-wise. What's particularly compelling is how self-aware she was during that conversation. While discussing broader trans rights, she made a point to explicitly acknowledge her own systemic privilege as a wealthy, cis, white woman.
Huh.
She was dismantling and exploring the boundaries of her own identity with the exact same analytical precision she used to dismantle pop music a decade earlier.
And that fearless analytical precision also extended back into the geopolitical arena.
Yeah, it did.
During her 2025 Ultrasound World Tour, she took much more direct, unambiguous actions than she did back in 2017.
Right.
At a show in New York, she led the crowd in a chant shouting, "Free fucking Palestine and solidarity." Furthermore, she actively removed her entire discography from Apple Music in Israel as part of the broader No Music for Genocide movement.
And again, just to explicitly remind you listening, we are maintaining strict neutrality here. We are merely reporting the facts of her activism exactly as they are recorded in the sources without endorsing any particular side.
Absolutely. The sources show these actions were widely covered and debated during the 2025 tour, highlighting an artist who is no longer apologizing for the political weight of her platform, but rather wielding it intentionally.
Right.
And as we look at where this story lands following that tour, we reach a truly fascinating conclusion to this narrative arc.
We really do. Let's synthesize everything we've talked about today.
Let's do it.
You start with the 6-year-old girl sitting in a room taking cognitive tests labeled gifted, observing the world from a distance.
Right.
Then she becomes the teenager reading Raymond Carver, critiquing the gaudy excess of pop culture while accidentally conquering the entire industry.
The anti-pop store.
Right. Then the young adult, navigating her own heartbreak, facing global political blowback, exploring her gender identity, and constantly refusing to stay in the sonic box the public built for her.
And where does all that evolution leave her today?
As of late 2025, Lorde's recording contract with Universal Music Group, the exact same label system that signed her based on a Duffy cover when she was 12 years old, officially expired.
To put that in perspective for you, she spent more than half her life renovating a house that belonged to a major corporation. And now the lease is up.
Precisely. She sent voice messages directly to her fans, indicating that while she might sign a new contract somewhere down the line, she first wanted to experience working as a truly independent artist for the first time in her adult life.
Wow.
She has systematically stripped away all the machinery, all the A&R executives, and all the label expectations to just be Ella.
It's an incredibly rare trajectory. She literally infiltrated the system, completely reshaped its architecture in her own image, and then at the height of her renewed power, simply decided she didn't need the system at all.
She just walked out.
She walked out the front door. Which leaves you with a final provocative thought to mull over. What does the future of pop music actually sound like when its most perceptive architect decides to step entirely outside the building she helped design?
It is a mystery that only her next chapter will answer, but I know we will all be listening closely.
I cannot wait to hear what that independence sounds like. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Thanks for listening to People L Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.